It's Hey, 8 hours.
There we go. Yeah, normally I have this session with Graham, so that went long today. So I am now on here to start it, I think, actually on time.
Cool.
So I'm going to put some diapers on some dogs. I'll be right back.
No problem. Hello, Jazz.
Hello. Hello, Sean.
That's not what I'm looking for. Come on, wake up. Going to Sunday. There we go.
There. I just got done. Turns out both of the girls are in estrus. They're in heat right now, so I have to put diapers on them. So I just got done putting the diapers on the girls. So now they're taking care of. Hey, Kayla. Hey, Jaswinder. Hey, Doug. And I'm going to open them. Are you still making announcements, Doug?
I am.
So, Jaswinder, yesterday's session went for, like 3 hours, over 3.5 hours yesterday, like 3 hours and 40 minutes approximately. I think it was Colin and Glenn who stayed around and were conversing all the way to the end. You're on mute, by the way, Jaswinder. Yeah, you're still on mute. Let me see if I can unmute you.
I'm sorry, I thought I was unmuted. Yeah, as I was saying, it's the first time I've seen Glenn so passionate, and he carried on the conversation with Colin. Hello, Colin. Even after I left,
Hello, I just got my audio working, so I just heard Glenn being passionate.
So I gave it a lot of thought last night, and when I woke up this morning, it was still rattling around in my head. And it occurred to me that if Colin is willing, rather than keep this hanging on till next week, perhaps if I had a quick chat with Doug, we might do some work on it today. If nobody else brings up anything more interesting, as to why is it that he cannot accept what it is that he rejects. And he rejects an awful lot. He doesn't even know that the things that he's rejecting cross-reference into other things that he does accept, which is a great pity because he's missing a lot.
Who are you talking about?
Colin.
Oh.
Yeah, we should probably give other people some space to air their thoughts. But I do think that some of the things I'm looking into are not specifically about me, at least the way I'm looking at them. They're not just about me. So they are worth discussing in a larger audience or a larger way. But as far as something that I'm missing because I'm rejecting or skeptical about a certain inquiry, it would be good to know where I may be missing something. So that, that's part of figuring out what's true. And yeah, it's not, and I guess what I'm saying is I'm leaning towards secular as opposed to leaning towards spiritual faith, because to me faith isn't a way to get to something. So that's basically where it is. But as far as history of stuff goes, it's very important. And so systems building and how things operate and why they operate, culture and tradition is extremely important to understand in that area. So I'm not saying that it's not worth discussing. It's just not worth preying upon to come to a certain solution.
So, if I may offer a perspective, in yesterday's conversation, I think we had an agreement that next Saturday we would talk about this thing that was hanging in the air. And I did ask Jaswinder and Colin both to come up with what they thought the topic would be. What describes what it is that we would want to do. Because I think this conversation has been requested by Colin now for quite a while. And so we agreed to do it on Saturday. And as far as I understand, from Jaswinder's standpoint, the topic is the process of creation / evolution. And as far as I understand it, the topic from Colin's side is the role of religion in these GCC conversations. That's the best I've been able to piece together myself. So that's the context that I thought might potentially be either helpful or confusing, depending on how you want to take it over.
So is this being proposed as grist for unblocking?
I just heard Jaswinder propose it, yes.
So, and we're not talking about the meat and merits of both of those things. We're talking about the block of the people bringing them.
I understand that difference, but I don't think that it ever stays there. It always
okay. So I'm gonna keep it there because this is unblocking. And
my observation.
Yeah. So we have two individuals, each with their own proprietary block. Hold on, Jazz. Colin's block clearly relates to or involves or has something to do with religion, and not religion as it relates to the GCC, but him as he relates to religion. And Jazz's, where did Jazz go? Hello? And Jazz's block has to do with, let me see whether I can do the meta on this. Has to do with, I would assert, a judgment lens being projected onto Colin.
No. There's one or two items which I think Colin would probably agree to. When towards the end of the session yesterday, Glenn mentioned the subjects of psychology and philosophy, etc. That seemed to light up Colin's imagination, and that he could accept those terms. Now, as far as I can see, and this is borne out in other items as well, psychology does travel across a whole spectrum of things, including religion and the way we obviously exist. So there's a lot of cross-referencing that can be done, which I'm, for the first time, becoming aware that Colin is not aware of these things. And there were other items mentioned yesterday as well in the long conversations that Colin has not mentioned being not aware of those. So there's a whole spectrum of things that came out yesterday, which needs probing. I'm complete.
Yeah, I would say that, again, we haven't got into enough specifics to say what I do or do not understand or what I'm missing. So, it would be nice to have some specifics of exactly what I'm missing without getting into a lecture. Like, what is it I would gain from this course? Why is it important to me? And what does it have to do with the conversation in GCC? I think that's it in a nutshell.
Well, let me, before even those questions, and I do get the imposition projection onto you that Jazz just did that you may or may not own and may or may not be true. So putting that aside for a minute, I'm curious are you really interested in game for or willing to get into the weeds around your relationship, connection, and challenges with religion, not as a debate about religion, but as a dive into your relationship with religion?
Sure, I would talk about some things in that regard, as much as I have already, and I think I've heard Sam state it. In fact, I would like to replay a couple of statements that Sam has made, because when I get into it, I think I'm being co-opted into some drama as well, which I would like to shed, because it's not so much about me. Go ahead, Sam. I don't think it is. I think it's about the forum and how we make claims of certain.
Yeah, I want to get out of all the forum and we speak. So I'm interested. I need a really black and white, clear, direct answer to the following question. Hold on, Sam. Because the real grist for this space, the real opportunity this space provides and affords, is the opportunity for a person with a block to transcend it, to leave it behind and to no longer be hung up on it. So that's about personal, emotional, spiritual, psychological, and intellectual stuff that is triggered around a particular meme, right? And it is personal, and it necessarily involves and includes, if done sort of most effectively, it involves exposure and revelation on an individual and personal level. So I'm just curious whether that is something that you would be game to do and willing to do in this forum, around your thing, your hobby horses, that has to do with religion. And by the way, no compulsion, no pressure, no anything, because you can say, nah, I don't really want to go there, and then we don't go there, and we figure out what's next on the menu.
Yeah.
But if you want to go there, then this is unblocking, and that's where we can go.
Right. Well, I think where my blocks are. Well, go ahead, Sam. Mine are more in the public facing realm. Personally, I don't think I have many blocks because I'm pretty okay with the fact that there's religion in the world and my skepticism about it. I'm pretty comfortable with that. And people just have different opinions. But when it comes to the public forum and moving forward in discussion, I find that there can be some difficulties. And I just stand my ground, that's all. Maybe I should stand it less to try to have some clarity. Go ahead, Sam.
The word that I think comes up when this theme recurs, that I haven't yet heard today, that Colin uses a lot, and I'm saying this because Colin is here, is the word bullying. So Colin uses the word bullying to describe some behavior that he experiences. This is my understanding. And I think that's probably more the trigger than the actual religion itself. That's what I'm.
Yeah, I would think it's bullying against reason. People who are fundamentally certain of certain things that they can't be truly certain of, other than they have a faith in that area. Add that to somebody who has a position of authority and can make decisions. Then you get into Sam's wheelhouse with these people being subsidized in government movements, and then our conversations between us with Jazz. I'm very interested within the focus of a particular show. If he's going to show how to meditate or what value that may have, that would be great. And I even talked quite a while, about another hour with Glenn after yesterday's barn raising to try to see how I could fit his ideas that are grandiose, as I think a lot of religious ideas are grandiose, and what relevance they may have, and what are they as a piece of work. As you once said before, Doug, people produce works. So what work is possible output of the discussion? Like, what is to be enlightened? And if it's just navel gazing, then maybe I don't need to take part in that. If it is actually something that's very historically important, that is relevant to some work that we're doing. So I guess it's always within a context of being relevant, I think. It's not that I don't feel I have the right to say what people should talk about, but I do think I have the right to feel what conversations I'm a part of. And when they start to go into places where a skeptic just does not feel comfortable, I guess you could say. So comfortable in doing work. If we're just trying to build up some type of movement, or we can all state truth, but that doesn't mean that we have the ability to hold the conversation and move that truth forward. The quality of the conversation can be degraded seriously when the focus is thrown in so many different angles. And I find that happens when you get into faith-based conversations. You move outside of the work-based conversation. So if Jazz has something he wants to show, like he gave me a demo on meditation the other day, we never really discussed we never had an exit interview on our little experiment, which was interesting. He said I couldn't sit still for 10 minutes and meditate, so I think we sat for 15 or 20. And then Gertrude cut the call off because it was during her show, and she said we can continue on. I suggested to Jazz we go talk on another channel and do the meditation. He says, no, young lad, I have you right here. You're going to do it right now. And I said, well, I would really prefer to do it. Can we call back on another channel in just a minute? No, we're going to do it right. So I did it. I did it. I said, I feel like we're imposing on Gertrude, and for certain, at a certain point, Gertrude, she cut the conversation and therefore made the session less meaningful than it could have been. So it's just a matter of leaning into conversations positively, even if you're outside of your comfort zone, you're willing to lean in. But the difficulty comes when people want to be controversial, which I think Jazz does a bit. He's also admitted to wanting to play games, and he's got some secret agenda he's not going to tell us about. And then you'll see, I've been working on it for a long time. Like there's all kinds of weird games that I don't play. I'm pretty upfront and honest about what I'm. Oh, we're getting bombed, I think. Zach, Chris, Jake, who's all these people?
Don't know.
I don't see a shield icon.
Who?
Security. There it is on the left.
Yeah, and there's a checkbox for waiting room.
Yes, I just did that.
Okay, and then everybody else is forced muted. That's why you can't hear us all.
Okay.
So you allow us to unmute ourselves, and we should be in business.
Because I wanted to stop that right away.
Yeah. Understood.
Okay.
Well, we were muted, so I couldn't help you, and I wasn't co-host, so I couldn't do anything. Yeah, and the only way you see that shield icon is maximizing the screen. It's the only way it becomes
I think
visible.
each of you can now unmute.
Okay, unmuted.
Perfect.
Okay. Sorry about that. I will. Yeah, this is the first time I've had it where I've been so slow, and that was rather persistent. And for purposes of this, I think I'll probably do the one thing I said I wouldn't do, but everything has an exception, and I will edit out that section of this particular video.
Yes.
Okay.
And Colin says he's still muted. Muted.
All right, Colin, you should be okay now.
Yeah, the thing is if I mute myself, then I'm back onto force mute, so it's like a sticky switch. For some reason. Like if I mute right now, I won't be able to unmute myself. I bet you.
Well, why don't you give it a try?
All right.
Yeah, he can unmute himself soon.
Okay, I'm trying to find that setting now.
That's the shield setting as well, is where it says allow them to unmute themselves.
Allow to unmute.
You have to check that.
Okay, there we go. It's now set.
Yeah, I've been thinking a little bit as this has been happening, and 3 or 4 things have just happened in the last 5 minutes, and the least of which was the bombing. That was just a catalyst. Sam mentioned about rules that has his expectations and when he's willing to go and change those rules. I thought about Rule 0 again, which is a video I just watched of me and Doug from back about a year ago, where Doug was really giving me a tongue lashing over what is it that the group could do so that I wouldn't be upset and I could put my grievances about the scuffle I had with Alex to bed. And that was the show where Alex agreed to actually have a meeting. He was picking a moderator. The end of the result was Alex didn't want to have that conversation. Been in the same position with Jazzwinder. So when I meet somebody face to face, one-on-one, saying let's resolve this, it does not happen. It seems like that I have a certain persona that these people would rather hash it out in public space and be controversial than just have a decent, mature conversation about what it is we're trying to figure out. So it might be not so fruitful to have those conversations unless we pay really strict attention to the fact that we're actually trying to resolve something and not actually trying to prove or be right about something. So I find the conversation about religion, trying to prove its value and worth, is not a very valuable exercise, because it has a different value and worth to each person. It's within the context of a particular conversation that I kind of draw umbrance to. And in as much, I would like to see more follow-up on particular conversations, because a lot of generalization happens and a lot of hand-waving and nothing really gets resolved. So to that end, I'm thinking of, instead of me creating more waves, I would rather go back and find some of the germane waves to say, okay, this is worth maybe discussing. Should we discuss this particular trigger or this particular misunderstanding? Because it still persists. And if we just keep on steamrolling the conversations, nothing really gets addressed and everything is talked about in generality. So that's kind of the feeling. So the idea of having the discussion about religion wasn't about to prove whether religion is right or wrong, how valuable it is. It's more to do with its placement and alignment within the conversation that we're having, and how we can agree to say, okay, well, that's interesting, but can we either highlight that more because it's very important right now, or could we put that off to the side because I think that's derailing the actual conversation? That's for the people to decide that are having the conversation. So if I'm a lone wolf in saying that I don't think that this particular religious or spiritual addition to the conversation for half an hour to an hour about purpose and all this different thing, if I don't think that's doing me any justice, then that's for me to find a way to exit that conversation, perhaps, or find a way just to listen. So I realize there's work to be done there. But on the other side, I think the quality of the conversation is drained when you just allow anybody to say there's a reason for everything and on we go. So getting to the specifics of what the triggers are. And in reality, I do believe that, in particular with Jazz and I, we probably agree on more than we disagree on. It's just the way we bring it forward. And so it might even be a personality clash. So anyway, that's how I'll put that.
So if I can pull a piece out of that, since we have Jazz here, and what you're suggesting is that neither Alex nor Jazz would engage one-on-one. Is, first of all, Jazz, is that true? And second of all, if it is, then why not? And third, if it isn't, then why is Colin left with that feeling?
In a short paraphrase, everything that Colin has said just now applies to Colin. Colin does not take responsibility for what he says. He doesn't think things out. And then he deflects and he causes confusion. And because he causes confusion, he becomes confused himself. And then he will accuse the protagonist, namely me, of being confused or causing confusion. And I think I'm probably one of the simplest thinking blokes on planet Earth. Couldn't get much simpler than that. So
okay. So hold it there. So Colin, you there?
Yes, and I can unmute myself.
Okay. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding, lack of proper space, lack of proper focus to actually defeat the misunderstanding. I do deflect, but not to sidestep or to derail as much as to try to maybe, as this conversation of religion is at hand, I would like to have it framed properly before we just get into it and everybody just starts swinging with their own assumptions.
Yeah, hold on a sec. So yeah. I'm going to ask Jazz to share what he just shared again. And I want you to listen into it. Because and listen and try listening into it from a place of being given information, insight, feedback, rather than as part of a tennis match.
Okay.
like hear it from a different place. And I want Jazz to repeat it because it's what's embedded in his share is that could be valuable for you, but it requires sort of shifting into a different listening.
Okay. In its simplest terms, without accusation, just stating an observation, Colin is hiding all that he does not know, and he avoids anything where that may become apparent, and he will deflect away from it, and he will not accept responsibility for that. Blaming other people to get away with situations that he's caused seems to be his forte. He did that in the earlier conversation today with regards to what happened with Gertrude. I'm not going to go into details. And he did that yesterday. He tried to deflect. And he, in the last couple of months, he is the one who brings up these topics. And then he says he doesn't want to talk about them. And I keep wondering, well, why does he bring them up? You know, I then sort of, is he trying to trigger me to cause an argument? And then that might lead to me being overly passionate. And then I could be accused of some sort of a misdemeanor, as happened yesterday with poor Glenn. Or at the end of yesterday, for the first time, I had reasonably concrete proof that he did not know what he was talking about. And he didn't want to take it any further because that was becoming apparent. And I think it really might be worthwhile having a look at that conversation, the last hour or so from yesterday, to see how that went and how it triggered Glenn as well. It became very circular, not informatively circular, but derogatory, going downwards. I'm complete.
Okay, I listened. What I heard was that I deflect. I don't want to have certain conversations, and I revealed my ignorance. That's what I heard. Is that correct? Okay.
I think that was what was said. I think the third piece, which is revealed your ignorance, I'm not sure how much of that is you and how much of that is Jazz.
Right. Well,
frankly, so I'd like to take that one off the table because I don't know what the inside out truth is of when you deflect.
Well, I think it's related. I think it's related to Jazz's genuine desire to enlighten people. That I know he has, and despite any shenanigans that he may or may not enjoy playing games or not, there's tape definitely of him saying he has different tactics, and he can explain that if he wants to. You know, there's nothing wrong with having character in, you know, so I'm not going to presuppose that Jazz is being dishonest because he likes to be provocative, for example. So that's fine. If he wants to get into an honest discussion and be a bit provocative and have even humor involved, I that's fine. So it's not about getting heated that bothers me. It's about the fact that he's feeding me a sandwich I don't want and he thinks I need. And from his worldview, which is probably very aligned with mine in many ways because we're living in the same century, we can discuss things. But when I think he gets into lecture mode, then he's saying that I'm derailing. Yes, I am, because I don't want to learn about all the 5 million different things I don't need to know. So if I need to know it, I ask the question, why is it relevant? What is it important? And that's kind of what I got in with Glenn. I said, what you're bringing to the group, I don't know if it can align with anyone specific. It's a nice truth that you can bring, and everybody will agree with you that you're speaking truths. But what can you actually do with it other than just motivate people to stay in this leaning in, which is valuable. And Glenn started to get upset because he said, you know, what does science really know? And so he felt he was being challenged by science. And I find when people get upset with science, it's because they're trying to protect something. I don't know, some worldview perhaps. And so I think at the end of it, Glenn wasn't upset, because I agree that science only knows so many things, but science is something that's reproducible, right? It's fact-based, as best as we know, with what we call reality. Once we get into the philosophy, we're into a different conversation. And I don't want to say we shouldn't have that conversation. What I'm saying is, do those two conversations mix at the same time? So get on top of that, Jazz says, not only do these two conversations mix, but let me explain to you how nothing is so important. And even you get into this, Doug, you say about this sense of being, and how it presupposes time. And, you know, we can get into, we had a very interesting conversation. I remember Amanda was involved in it, and we were talking about sitting on a bench, and if one person sits on a bench. So we get into a lot of these conversations. I'm not trying to avoid the conversations. I'm not trying to be intelligent or know everything about Jazz's spirituality. I don't know what value it has for me. If he can show me what value it has before I go through the lecture, that would be a little bit more efficient. So if you could say, you know, the reason why this is important, as with Glenn and even other people with large philosophical ideas that are so general, you have no specific place to attach them to a work. I'm not saying it's not valuable to have here. It's just when they get so disconnected from reality, I call bullshit, I guess, on the conversation. When maybe what would be a better tact is to take that conversation to another forum, like is what I'm trying to do with the religion conversation, prepare for it, so that we can have, my conversation about religion is not about Jazz's vision of religion. And I think that's one of the confusions here. I think Jazz thinks that I'm trying to learn what it is that he has to teach me. That's not my primary concern. That's Jazz's primary concern, and that's what he's judging me on, right? I'm saying, should we have that conversation somewhere else, and I may or may not want to be part of it. That's
okay.
all.
Okay, hold on a sec. Jazz, go ahead.
2 items. Item 1 is, I'm just going to ask Colin, out of all those points he made, can he remember which particular one actually triggered Glenn yesterday?
Yeah, I think it was when I was starting to say there's, and I think you picked up on it too, there's a science type of conversation.
Right. Can you remember the specifics of the science conversation that
I
really...
remember his mantra. He was saying, science doesn't know everything. Science, you know, how do you know that?
More importantly, he wanted to know what you consider science to be. By that, I think he was asking what you think is the methodology of operation of science.
Well, I think the simple thing to do.
Wait, hold on one sec. I just want to pause for 1 sec.
Okay, go ahead.
No, literally, I just want to pause for 1 sec. I want to open up like 30 seconds of just pause. And then respond. I just want to slow the conversation down. If you don't mind. And not because I'm judging that something's wrong, just as a practice, because we're in unblocking. And so I want to just give the breathing room between responses.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Okay, Colin.
Go ahead, Sam.
Sam, you're muted.
Okay, sorry. If I may, just very briefly.
Left guy out.
A very long share that touches 7 or 8 or 9 points. It's difficult to respond to. And it typically reveals, I would say, okay, and I'm making this imposition right now on interpretation, a lack of focus on what exactly the issue is.
Yep.
So if you're really clear about what the issue is, I think you can actually be more concise. And I'll try to be concise.
I think you're derailing the conversation, Sam, and you don't want to talk about it.
No, absolutely not.
I
Absolutely.
agree with Sam. That's why I came in and
That was a joke. That was a joke, Sam.
I took it as a joke. I think it was really funny. So, Colin, do you want Jazz to restate, or do you remember where we left off? It was basically on the science meme, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'd like to say I'm trying to. I find I'm saying too much to get to my point, and what Sam is saying is exactly right. And even more to the point, I've stated 3 or 4 times now. I would like to go find a few clips of Sam following me stumbling through this drama where Sam comes in and just says, I do want to state that there is a problem with religion in society and its thoughts and means bleeding into governance. And that's where 99% of it is for me here. Whether Jazz has some sagacious knowledge or something is interesting to different degrees to different people. And if we want to specialize in Jazz, sharing that information with somebody, then maybe we should focus on helping Jazz share that information, not just downloading it on me because I'm an imbecile.
Okay, hold on a sec. Time out. Okay, so I'm going to rewind the videotape for a sec because you just did another deflection, and I really want to make forward progress on this block.
Okay.
So I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm going to hold on for dear life. So Jazz referenced a very specific nexus where you triggered Glenn, and Glenn turned to you and asked for what this vision is. You frame this binary of there's this science thing and then there's not science.
Right.
Right? Okay.
Right.
And Glenn asked you what the science thing was for you. This is right. So the following response should, if it's in fact going to be, hold on, if it's in fact going to be responsive, needs to be stated in the first person, preferably first person possessive in this case, which involves using the words I or my, followed by whatever you want to say.
Okay, this is so painful because it lacks the memory that I wish we had, because I've said it.
We don't need any memory to deal with this particular question.
Sam and I are after memory.
Yeah, I know. So
I'll just state what science is to me. Science is to me is a tool, like a stick, that a human can use to ascertain what is going on. So they do experiments and they follow procedure, okay? And it's the best way we know to get to what is so-called truth. On the other side of the realm, I would say, the yin and the yang or whatever, there is this thing called supernatural.
Okay, hold on. Wait.
And
I want to slow this down a little bit. I want to stop at where you went with your definition of science.
Yeah.
So there are 2 things you stirred into that. One was best.
Yes, that we know of.
And truth.
Yes, facts.
Okay.
Reproduce.
Now, best qualified the concept of truth.
Yeah. Well, so, I'm not squishing terms other than.
No. I am.
Okay, good.
That's why this is unblocking. That's why I'm going down this rabbit hole.
That's why I'd like to have my lawyer Sam research.
But here's my point, Colin.
Because if I had it written right here, I would just read it. So
Yeah,
what?
hold on. Here's my point. Hold on.
You already know.
Colin, hold on a sec. Here's my point.
Go ahead.
So in what you just shared in terms of your connection alignment with science, if I can characterize it that way, hopefully I'm not projecting or imposing on you with that. That best, it is the best affordance mapping to truth. Now, truth wasn't modified in that statement as my truth or a truth, it was the truth. Right? Did I get that right? Just checking in.
Yeah, I was listening, getting into coffee. Yeah, so I think that's what triggered Glenn, was this idea of how do scientists know what's true?
Well, it may not have been scientists. It may have been the concept of the truth.
Then he yelled at me, and I said, well, I don't have authority, and it's where people have authority. That's what was the conversation was about. People
Hold on. That's actually a deflection. I want to bring it back to the point.
Scientists make claims. It's about claim making in the end. So,
okay, cool. Stop. You're doing great, by the way. I appreciate your hanging in here with me. So claim, I think you're absolutely right. It is about claim making.
Yes.
Okay, it's about asserting things.
Yes. And me.
Which hold on. I want to take it out of Glenland. I just want to stay with this meme for a sec.
Okay.
Okay. So claim making is in fact highly subjective. Like there's a person who makes the claim.
And the reason why I want the rigor of science behind it.
Wait. Hold on. Before you stir in science.
No, that's what I'm saying.
So claim making is a subjective act because it requires a person who's asserting or projecting or making the statement, making the claim.
Here's just flat. Why don't we pick a claim and then we'll talk around?
No, because this is the whole point, Colin. This is the whole point for this inquiry and Sunday sessions. It's unblocking.
It might be too general. It might be too general to have any meaning.
Oh no. This is of the essence.
That's my claim. My claim is a lot of stuff goes around without getting specific enough to have take-home meaning.
I get that for you.
Well, I think for purpose of moving.
Well, hold on. This is really critical. Okay.
For memory.
So the claim making is a subjective act. Would you agree with that idea that somebody makes a claim? It takes a person to assert or project a claim.
Yeah, we're all a brain in a vat, and nobody's here but me. That's a claim. Yes.
Very, very cool. Okay. And claims can be rooted in or based on, generally, actually not can be, are universally rooted in or based on beliefs.
No. Belief and experimentation.
Hold on. The and experimentation is in service to your belief in science.
You're right, because
so it starts with the belief, and your belief in your particular case is that you go to science and scientific method as the means for affirming your beliefs.
No, well, it's confidence levels that does the affirming. And
well, hold on.
Let's bring the word understanding.
Confidence again is subjectively rooted in the individual.
Okay, right. So let's frame it that belief's at the top, but underneath belief is understanding. So just because you believe something doesn't mean you actually know it or understand it.
That's not true.
That is true.
That is absolutely not necessarily true. If somebody believes that God has all the answers, then that's what they believe. And you know what? They don't need anything else but that in order to go about their business and attend rallies in the middle of pandemics.
That's right. And they're up there. They're up there at the highest level of plugging their ears in belief.
Well, hold on. So let's take the judgment out of it and just look at it mechanistically and transactionally, because that's what I'm trying to drill down to with you and for you. Okay.
Well, I think
Beliefs are the roof, right? Out of which an individual responds to the world, processes the world, relates to the world.
Right.
Okay. Now,
can I switch the word belief to faith now? Because
no.
Because I have no problem with belief.
No.
Everybody
Some people may label their belief faith, and some people may label their belief scientific method.
No, belief could have reason behind it. Faith doesn't.
No. There's nothing behind belief. Belief is the fundamental.
There's
That's the basement. That's the cellar on which everything's built.
Hold on. If you can wrap a hypothesis around an idea, which you could say, I think, I believe.
You're already down the road. Let's start with the basic. The basic starts with somebody's belief.
Claims on faith is where the problem is. Jazz
Hold
has
on.
faith in a certain practice. And
Hold on. Do you believe there's any true qualitative difference experientially from a experiencing of reality standpoint? Do you think there's any substantial difference for an individual who has a belief, regardless of what that belief is? Experientially, a person who has a belief is going to project and filter and perceive and relate and orient and act and respond
witness
based on that belief, okay, and then express or share or project or enact or whatever in alignment with it. It's the nature of the human beast. Before you get to the distinctions of belief systems, before you get to judgments of whether one person's belief is better or worse, right or wrong, good or bad, black or white, before you get to all the judgment crap, at the end of the day, belief systems are belief systems.
Sure.
Okay. Your belief system is rooted in this meme science.
It has parts of it that are rooted in science.
Okay. So all things being equal, but at the end of the day, okay, your unique belief system is yours.
Sure.
Okay. Jazz's unique belief system is Jazz's. Mine is mine.
Right. And
right? Okay. Hold on.
Into faith, and it's
hold on.
a science conversation.
Hold on. If I cross my arms and I go, my belief do or die, and effectively I'm in judgment of anything that isn't in alignment with and consonant with my belief system, that's intrinsically me blocking understanding, awareness, recognition of, and acknowledgement of another's belief system. It's saying, I'm not interested in your fucking belief system. Go take a hike. I only believe in my belief system.
No, not necessarily. I think there's more constraints. there's more constraints. Just infinite time to listen to everybody. And this is the pattern. I make a claim. I kind of stand my ground, and then you shit on me for a while, and then Sam comes and says, well, I really take offense to that because I would like to say, and those are the conversations we got to go back and replay and have you and Sam go through that, because I really don't have a problem. I feel like the messenger's being shot here because the messenger who's carrying the mail doesn't understand nuclear physics. Well, I don't need to know nuclear physics, but maybe nuclear physics is interesting to a lot of people, or Jazz's religion, or whatever it happens to be. So it's not just because it's science or religion that it's not germane to the time I have to give to it.
Okay, so
and it's about my effort for clear conversation and coexistence to try to make a bit of a memory that we've been to this before, and what is it exactly that's the problem. And you're trying to take it to, which I appreciate. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get to a block that I have about religion. Well, I don't really have a block about religion because
no. Hold on. I'm not focusing on or projecting a block on you about anything.
Okay, so what is?
But I want to do a quick check-in because Sam made a comment in the chat that is absolutely true and fair, which is that I'm deviating pretty significantly from the traditional unblocking frame, and being the sage convener and just sort of bearing witness, and I'm projecting a pretty strong steering in this session, which I haven't done before, and that I didn't check in with the room as to whether that's okay with everybody. And that is absolutely true and absolutely a fair request and inquiry. And so I do offer open to the room whether folks are interested, game, and support or aver what I'm doing. And if people don't like it, I'll stop it. And if people support it, then I'll continue it.
I would like to reframe it, and I think Sam has the framing going in a positive direction.
Okay, Alex and then Sam, because I saw Alex's hand go up before you, Sam, if that's okay.
So you have your same chirpy microphone problem.
Yeah, we've got the chipmunk Alex version. Not
Damn
sure why.
Cute, damn cute too.
Maybe you're welcome.
If I could figure out how to achieve that effect by design, then I would love to have a session with everybody talking like that. Alex, go ahead, you're back.
Well, what I wanted to put in the chat, I can't because my keyboard isn't working. And it was the simple fact that science is the art of measuring and labeling things, the basic lab science. And it tells us beyond how things are interrelated and react with each other, it doesn't tell us much about why we're here. It can tell us how we got here. But when it comes to science, you've got to turn to philosophy or religion to find out, to answer some questions that science is unable to answer. Why are we here?
And where should you have that conversation is my question.
Hold on, Colin. Sam was next in the queue.
Well, I wanted to respond to something earlier, but I have to say I almost could not disagree with Alex more. Gently, Alex. I want to just gently disagree with you on this notion of science. And where it is with the comment I made in the chat, Doug, is I'm completely okay with you providing that, offering that structure, so long as the rest of us get to participate from time to time. I do disagree with the characterization that belief systems are belief systems, okay? And I think that's actually a point of disagreement that we could lean into. But I still believe, in my opinion, after watching conversations for 3 years, that we've not yet touched on this issue between Colin and Just Wyndham. We're still deflecting from point to point. What I'm seeing, and this is my interpretation, okay, because Colin has used this word many, many times, is that it's really the bullying that he's objecting to. It's the bullying that he characterizes that triggers him. It's not so much about religion. You know, if I came in here and says, you know, all of us should be wearing pink, you know, hey, Colin, you're not wearing pink, that would be a similar sort of bullying that I think Colin would object to. So I don't think it's necessarily around religion, although in addition to the bullying, religion is also a triggering concept. But as long as it's parked to the side, I don't think it has to be central in play. So I think there's two separate issues. And for me, what I've been seeing over 3 years is more the bullying rather than the religion.
I just raised my hand earlier to say hello to Tyra or Tyra.
Hi, Tyra. Welcome.
And Taylor, and see if they had anything to say.
Well, good morning. I jumped in on a super lively conversation. I like it. So good morning to everybody. Science and religion, boy, you just couldn't choose a more individualistic conversation. I mean, I really enjoy listening to all sides, and I appreciate that you're trying to move the conversation forward to where everyone can be heard. You know, these are subjects that most of us walk away from because they are so passionate. I mean, our belief systems trigger passion. And that passion can just make steam come out our ears because it's our heart connection. If you believe in God, and that steers your life. I mean, and somebody comes in and says, hey, fuck that. You know, I don't believe in, you know, I'll tell you something that I did once that I'm not proud of that really made me understand the passion. I was raised an atheist. My parents gave me the choice of exploring all kinds of religions, which I did. I'm a curious person. I still explore all religions. And I had a boss, and we'd all been drinking after work one night, and he had brought his Bible to work. Now, we worked at a bar. This is a bar. So, you know, it's 1 a.m. We're all drinking port, and we're just sloshed. And I take his Bible, and I drop it on the floor. Just to make a point. Just to make a point. It's just a book. It's just a book. I'm going to drop it on the floor. I'm not going to be struck down by lightning. Now, looking back, I did one of the most disrespectful things possible for this man. But to me, my belief system was, it's just a book. It's just a book. And I dropped it on the floor. And that's my belief system. Now, his belief system is, this book holds all the answers. That's his Bible. And you know, he almost fired me because I dropped his Bible on the floor. And to me, it was no big deal. It was like dropping a magazine on the floor. So it made me realize, well, a lot of things, like I shouldn't sit up drinking all night with my boss and throws, you know, but I would never do that again. Just because his belief system is so strong, and other people's belief systems with their religions, they're passionate. And I will respect that, whether I believe it or not, whether it's science, whether it's, you know, if some guy has his book on quantum physics and it means everything to him to understand the science behind space, I'm not going to drop that on the floor because that's his passion, just because it's not mine. So again, it all comes down to listening, human compassion, empathy, and ultimately love for everyone's belief systems. Now, when I see people protesting and doing the whole, you know, white power American thing that's going on right now, I really want to go up to those people and punch them in the face and say, I don't believe in your whole white power thing. In fact, it enrages me to the point where I want to punch you in the face. I'm a nice person. I'm not a violent person. But when I see that stuff, social injustice, things that interfere with my belief system, then I go ballistic. I mean, I really go raging down the street. So where do we draw the line? We have to check in with ourselves and say, do I let that person believe that he's better than other people because of his Christian faith and how he's interpreted that faith and turned it into his passion? So it's a fine line. It's a real fine line. But for me, listening, keeping my mouth shut and keeping my passion in check, and knowing that everybody has different belief systems. That's what makes us unique as humans. Done. Thank you. Whoop.
Anyone else? Sam?
No, I just spoke, so please go first.
Taylor? Okay, to be personal for a short while and to give a little depth to my own persona. I don't particularly have a particular belief system, although I do follow one. I go into depth to analyze all systems. Having said that, I'll put that to one side and I will move on to passion that I have currently. Is I am really, really interested in what was there before the so-called Big Bang. The explanation given by the current, just to qualify that word science, science starts from a very basic premise, which is a thought, an idea, and it works its way to very highly qualified systems of analysis, quantitative and qualitative. But that does not mean to say that you can't have a belief system about science either. So I looked at the evolutionary system of how everything got here, right from the basics of nothing, as it's premised. Even science said there was nothing in the beginning, to a being who is capable of analyzing and going backwards through the whole system. And that's me, by the way. I don't know about anybody else. I couldn't answer for anybody else. So I looked at the current systems and how they evolve and how everything, all processes of creation are extremely repetitive. Eons of repetition on one small step to come forward. And then all of a sudden, roughly about 3 million years ago, we have an explosion of evolution resulting in us. And in the last 20, 30 years post-World War II, there's been another explosion of evolution resulting in even better us. And that took me to going backwards to see how it all came about. And I am passionate about that. I don't have a particular belief about that because that would be counterproductive. I want to know how it happened. That is all. So what I know is what I offer, nothing more. If there is an impression of other systems coming in and being involved, and that I'm imposing those on others, it's untrue. They are there. If they are contradictory to other governance systems, that's not true. All governance systems are bullying. And they're all false. The whole premise, whole of creation, all of the life systems on Earth are built on lies. We are the best liars evolution's produced so far. And we hide so much that we don't say just to keep the peace. That's one of my big bed bugs and bear bugs, is that we hide what we really ought to say truthfully, and we don't, because we don't want to upset people. And people who get upset easily could qualify that as bullying. And I'm not targeting that at college. I target that at everybody. And I do like to have conversations which are not the usual way of talking. I do like to have a running conversation. So if I haven't seen somebody for some time, or even a short time, I like to pick up the conversation where we left off last time. I do expect people to have reasonable memory systems that, here he comes. Last time I saw him, he had a limp. He's not limping, must be better, obviously. Does that need talking about or not? Or shall we move on? So it's a very quick, fast, reflexive action that I've built up because I was in the engineering trade for 25, 30 years or so. you got an engineering problem coming or whatever problem comes in, where do you start? You start wherever it is at, not where I'm at. So, having repetitive conversations which don't go anywhere is exhausting. I do that with the 7, 8-year-olds here. It's exhausting because that's all they have. You can't go forward. Now, with the children, I have the certain knowledge that if I keep putting knowledge into them, their conversations will change. When the conversation is relentlessly the same, I have to suspect that something is not quite right. Is it lack of memory? Is it avoidance? Whatever it is, why does it keep occurring? What can I do, or what can others do to try and alleviate this anomaly? And if one particular way doesn't work, then try another one and another one, another one. And one of those happens to be that if we raise the tempo and the passion, that tends to work sometimes. And if it doesn't work, go back to step one and try the whole gamut again. See what does stick. And if it doesn't stick, even if the person doesn't want to change, give up. But unless we try the whole scenario, we can't give up. It's kind of like saying, I'm going to stop eating or I'm going to stop breathing. It's built in, especially if a person has spent half his lifetime doing that very same thing that he's doing here now. I can't give in. I don't know how. I'm complete.
Something that keeps coming up in my mind after we, said the word passion, how bullying, being bullied, and I missed the first part of this conversation, so I apologize if I'm going in a different direction, but you have the word passion, and then the other word to me is that human beings need hope. And so we look at our belief systems in the pursuit of hope. Like, God, there's got to be something worth living for. There's got to be we have to be able to understand this so that I can understand the confusion and the chaos. Some people turn to science to try to bring down the chaos and understanding. So I think when we get down to these very basic primal emotions, then we can start seeing why it sparks so many different reactions. So that's all I have to say. I just wanted to throw out that word hope, and that we as humans, that hope shapes our belief system. Over.
So I just want to throw in, Sam, I saw you raise your hand, but let me just throw in a variation on that that's a little bit more concrete. So I think might be a little more concrete, that belief systems, we create them. I create my belief system. Why do I create a belief system? Well, in most contexts and circumstances, they're iterative constructions, meaning that there are some foundational and core beliefs that I formed way back when. And then I continue to add layers of brick and mortar to them. So if I drill down to the beginning, the seed crystals for them, far enough, most beliefs are born out of a survival level confrontation with a threat. Most belief systems, like if you get, drill all the way back to origination point, where when I was really small, I was in fact powerless relative to the scale of the threat, be it in the form of an adult human being or a parent or whatever the circumstances. And experienced, not, I'm saying this not literally, but experienced at the level of life and death, that I experienced a traumatic impact or effect at a life and death level emotional confrontation in that moment, because I've never experienced it before. So it's the first time I experience something that is that horrendous, that makes me feel that terrified or that scared. And the next instant, the next thing I do is rationalize it, is try to come up with an explanation as a way of evolving and developing what my survival strategy is going to be for the next time. It's making sense out of it. It's providing a context for it, a frame for it, so that I know how to deal with this the next time it's coming. And that's the root. That's the root. And so, Tyru, when you were talking about, when it comes down to beliefs, it triggers people's emotional reactivity and response to the level of anger and potential rage, even in the most pacifist-centered, peaceful, calm, meditating, guru level, enlightened person can be turned into a rabid, spitting, hissing dog. If you find the belief, if you find the trigger for that life and death moment in the past when they came up with whatever they came up with, that's an autonomic response. That's like the lizard brain response, right? It has nothing to do with frontal gray matter. It's reflexive. It's more primitive than that. And if I constructed my belief out of a life and death exigency that I just experienced as a way to survive that, my beliefs equal my survival. Challenge my beliefs, challenge me, challenge my life. My life is on the line. If my belief is threatened, then I no longer have the sense that I made in the face of that threat to rely on, which means I'm at risk. The next time I'm dead. If my belief doesn't protect me, nothing and nobody will. So that's the reactivity trigger. That's the blocking. That's the triggering piece. So the question, at least to my mind, I mean, that's the human condition. And in the world we're in the cultural frame we're in, it's set up and designed to keep everybody isolated in their beliefs, everybody atomized and separate from everybody else, and in competition and in strife and in conflict and at war. Because if we stop and think about it and put the gloves down, all of a sudden we're empowered and we're back in control, and we can actually decide to collectively coordinate and work things out and take care of each other and do all of these things, which, if we're doing that, it means we're no longer commodities to be controlled as units of production. So, God forbid, that should be unleashed. Individual self-determination should be the order of the day. So The question to my mind is, are we capable as a species of evolving beyond that reflexive, primitive, lizard brain, my belief system or die, individual, self-oriented place, and shift to a higher brain level collective in service to collective and commons orientation that's transcendent of individual self-interest and survival? That's sort of the question. We haven't been able to do it here for over 3 years, even within the frame of these conversations. It's still a competitive contact sport of who's right, who's more right than the next guy. How do we transcend that? And with that, I'm complete, and there were a flurry of hands. So I think Sam was first, Tyra, then Jazz, and I'll tender the mic.
Well, there's been quite a sequence, so I have 4 items, but I may not get to all 4 items, okay? Well, let me take one of the evolutions that I think you described, Doug, which was, as we are babies, we are powerless. And our source of information and survival is that which is closest to us, my mother, okay? Eventually expands to the family, eventually expands to the community, the neighborhood, perhaps, the church, perhaps the temple, perhaps whatever, the log cabin is, okay? And eventually perhaps expands to schools and other people and other communities, especially if we travel. The expansion of perspective and the consideration of multiple input sources and the understanding of other thought systems. When that expansion continues, one begins to examine the universe. And that examination of the universe is why, if you believe in God, I would say science is the way God is talking to us. If we really want to listen to God, peer deeply into the universe. Peer with the best ability you have, whether it's your eyeballs, whether it's a microscope, whether it's an electron telescope, whether it's, gamma ray, refractometer, whatever that is. And it's that expansion, that curiosity of what God is and what God is saying. That's science, okay? Science doesn't claim to say what is true. Science really works hard to prove something wrong. That is science. And if it's proven wrong, let's shun it and let's, refine it. There's a version of it that we can go after. So if people don't understand that about the scientific process, you can't really talk about science. Science doesn't say what's true. Science says what is provably false. And that's a very important distinction. It's not facts. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of listening to the universe.
And
So, wait. Let me see if I can finish this, okay? Because the way I characterize this is, if you want to stop at the community and say, okay, fine, I now have my belief system. Or if you want to stop at mother and say, now I have my belief system. Or if you want to stop at a particular book and say, now I've got my belief system. And then now I'll kind of not be receptive to other things. Now, you're not really looking at the universe anymore. You're not really listening to God anymore. I'll draw another analogy, okay? 30 or 40 years ago, people thought AI was talking to experts who had gotten 40 years of experience. We have to interview them and then codify their knowledge in a software system. And that's how we got medical diagnosis systems. That's how we got financial, recommendation systems. That's how Amazon did recommendation engines for, if you bought this, then you might like that. That's how we got this sort of thing, okay? But now we have lots of data. We're peering beyond a specific individual. So we got big data now where we can actually look at bigger patterns and more subtle patterns and extract more subtle, insight from those things. And that is now where AI is going. And eventually it's going to get more and more data. And so now these experts, which are very calcified solutions or repositories of knowledge, can be exceeded by looking at more and more than they ever could accumulate in a lifetime. I'm trying to say there is a parallel here. The reason software goes there is because it works. And this is the key. I'm going to use this one word, okay? Is that I would like to adopt that which disappoints me the least. That's what science is. Science is trying to be a system of thought that disappoints you the least. Unlike certain religions where, hey, if you do this, you'll have a happy life. No, I believe many people have been disappointed by that guidance. Or if you believe in God and you do this, then something's going to happen. There's going to be another disappointment down the line for millions of us. Okay, so there are many disappointments, in my perspective, built into religious structures. I'm not saying all of them, but most of them. Whereas the goal of science is to try and make us the least disappointed, to provide us that set of thoughts and beliefs that will disappoint us the least. And I haven't heard anyone else characterize it like that, but I fundamentally believe that is really an important insight to understand about science.
I would say
I got 2 or 3 other points, but I'll just stop there for now.
Just disappoint in the sense of lying or bullying to us. Science doesn't have any investment in the truth. It just is what it is. We invest in it, right?
Science is not a person. Science is not an entity.
Right. So, exactly. So, and that's why
it doesn't care.
Okay? Yeah. Hold on. Calm
so the
down.
disappointment,
I had my hand up for a long time.
is
I'm
from
next.
information.
I am next. And I just want to point out to Doug that Colin has put a fair amount in chat, which I think you should read and possibly address. I really don't have much else to say. I do agree with what Sam has to say about science wholeheartedly. The only thing I can add to that is science is split up into various topics and subjects, and I don't quarrel with any of them. They're providing valuable information. And as for looking for God in science, I'm also that as well. I just happen to take exception to one particular aspect of science, and other errors that science has made, I'm not taking exception to that. Science has evolved enormously and is continuing to do so. I have no qualms with science. And as for Alex and his comments, I have lots of qualms about him doing that. He's been told not to do that many a times. I'm complete.
So I've heard the word evolve, evolution, understanding. One of the things for me that helps me dissect everybody else's belief systems is in the beginning when we developed language, that's what set us aside from other animals. Because once we had language, we could create a narrative. And everybody in the village followed that narrative. This is our God, the sun. We all believe in that. It's a narrative. And as we have evolved from hunter-gatherers, from bacteria, essentially, we've evolved from bacteria. So science tells us. It's the narrative. Gold is valuable because a human said gold was valuable and another human got on it and said that's valuable. And so if we can take the narrative and back up and try to understand why was that narrative created in the first place? Was it to get a group of people to do something? Was it we need to migrate? Everybody had to have the same story. So I just wanted to jump in with that and say, what is the narrative? and why has that narrative been established, and the fact that the narratives change as hundreds of years go by, just as you were saying about AI. There were groups of people that felt the world was flat. That was the narrative. But then somebody went out and said, nope, I don't think it is. And this is why. Here's my experience. Here's my narrative. Oh, I like that. I'm going to hop onto that. And so as our passions get fired up, and as we as human beings navigate together, you have to ask ourselves, what's the narrative? And why am I following this narrative? Is it my core beliefs? Does it give me hope? Does it follow my mother's narrative? Does it follow my Bible's narrative? What is it about this that makes me want to jump on to this thought process? And again, I always go back to gold. It's an illusion that gold is valuable. Gold is just a mineral in the ground. You know, there's a lot more rare minerals in the ground than gold, but we decided that that's the gold standard. And so that's for me what I chew on a lot. Why do we have this narrative right now? Why are those people fighting? You know, what is the narrative that drives them and that they've been told and that they've all wrapped around it? I'm done.
Alex, we're getting chipmunks again. Want to try again? We're not hearing anything now.
Microphone.
There
Now
you are.
better.
There you are.
Okay. The sweet spot in the universe between the macro and the micro is where we happen to be. It's like the Goldilocks zone in the solar system. It allows life to exist. So this is a hint, you know, if you need any more clues about intelligent design, then I don't know where you should look. Colin.
That's okay with you, Doug? Do they call upon the moderator so you can watch people's time as well? So they don't.
Over.
I'll assume it's a go ahead. So yeah, there's like Sam said, there's a bunch of different things that could be discussed at this point. Jazz is right. I did put a bunch of stuff in the chat. I think a good way to characterize this is, what are we trying to achieve? What is the narrative? I like that. What is the context, in other words, that we're discussing particular things? And that can change day to day, show to show, offline and online. You know, arguing about religion with Jazz becomes very secondary when I hear he's going through a medical condition. He's got a medical problem. I'm more concerned about whether Jazz is going to be healthy or not, to whether he's relayed to me some esoterical knowledge, philosophical knowledge or whatever. So I think keeping what's important in light, and as Doug mentions, to what's our survival. So in that light, I mentioned, so I think if Jazz really does have something to say, and it takes a long time to unpack it all, then there's a way that could and should be managed. And I'm not going to re-suggest all the things I've said for other people for brevity. But yeah, I'm not saying it shouldn't be discussed. Where should it be discussed and why should it be discussed? While I did that with Glenn yesterday after the show, because Glenn has some very positive truths of a better world that he thinks are truths. And so I can't say they're not truths. He believes in them. I'd even say he has faith in them. He has faith in what he believes. He has no evidence other than if people just would operate the system more in his line of thinking, it would be better. So, you know, that has all the check boxes for me, trying to find out what's better, whatever. I like the philosophical conversation because we are talking about meta things, but at some point we have to land that plane to where it matters. So you can introduce, so let's say 2 people or 3, or as many as you want. Say Glenn with his superstructure, Jazz with whatever it is he's trying to, his passion that he wants to convey, and a flat earther. Okay, they all come to the meeting. Okay, so we give each one of them time to explain what they're talking about. But each one needs more time and space to really unpack what they're talking about. Do we continue to give them the space on this show, saying, okay, you're blocked, you still haven't got everybody to understand what it is your message is? Or do we find a better way to manage that alignment of messages? I'm into the vein, or putting my effort into trying to align people's messages as someone who is trying to help build that system or try to understand what's being talked about. It's not about me and my beliefs. It's about how do we get together in a conversation where I have beliefs, somebody else has beliefs. How do we coexist and say, hey, can we not fight and get all passionate about that? I'm sorry I dropped your Bible. I didn't mean any disrespect. Could you, like, you know, please relax a little bit and stop being so goddamn superstitious and relax for a minute? You know what I mean? Like, don't fly off the handle at me. I'm sorry I dropped your Bible. It's not worth putting my family, my kids, and my welfare in jeopardy. Do you realize how psychotic that is? Right? But no, these people don't see how psychotic that is, their overreaction. So how do we see it that coming, rule 0, and divert it somehow? Yes, Jazz, divert it. Put it somewhere else where it would flourish. And the question is, are we to do it here? So I asked Glenn, I said, Glenn, with your lofty idea, and we were talking about Teen Congress, and I said, the whole idea of the Teen Congress wasn't to tell the kids what they should be debating or discussing or take on as their 5 top issues or whatever it is. They can ask for our help. So I said, there's a big difference between you coming and telling the Teen Congress that they should come to GCC and listen to your story about the superstructure and why that's important to them and how that could be important to them, as opposed to them coming across some information about infinity and then saying, hey, I know a guy who thinks a lot about infinity, Glenn, why don't you go talk to Glenn about that? And then Glenn would be being asked to this, and they could decide how much of it they want. So I find the direction of the ask is wrong. I find the focus is easily side staged, and trying to find a memory through these conversations so that we can say, you know what, let's do an update on that conversation because it's moved forward. To derail the whole show to try to move it forward may or may not be, as Sam mentioned, something we all want to talk about. Can we discuss whether we want Jazz to do another mini deep dive to try to explain what he's doing? Or like Sam says, maybe we could take it to barn raising and each person could get an hour or an hour and a half to try to actually be heard and say what they have to say. So that's where I have more of my difficulty, is appropriate place and time and topic and following through, as opposed to just philosophizing, which is fun, but it's a bit of a luxury. And if it's not being done seriously for a particular point, it may be worth dedicating to a sprout, you could say. So what are sprouts and what are in session, I think is a big thing for me. And when people start to bully their sprouts in, Sam's right. And it doesn't matter if it's at GCC or where it is. When people start making arbitrary rules based off of faith, especially, forget about belief, based off of faith and hope. I hope this is true. Well, I hope it's true for me, so you better hope it's true for you too. No, that doesn't fly. So I think it's acknowledging when these conversations take those paths so that I don't have to be the guy to say, whoa, how do you know that's true? Or I'm in the wrong conversation, I should just be quiet or go to a better conversation for me. So it's how to navigate that without feeling like you're portraying on the other person that a judgment of some sort. I'm judging my time, my importance, my moving forward. And yes, we're going in circles. And yes, we're trying to understand the world as Jazz sees it again. And I'm saying, okay, well, is that an interesting show? You know, so that was that. I guess what I had to say. So understanding is part of what we believe, and that could be correct and useful. Faith is not a reliable way to the truth in my mind. Survival, perhaps coincidentally, you know, people with faith, like, you know, our lizard brain is full of all kinds of superstitions that are probably keeping us alive. But, you know, when science gets a hold of those superstitions, they can say, oh, I see why that could be because of this. Science is the one that fills the gaps, not faith. So
I think we started off this whole thing with the premise of having a look at what Colin was about rather than everybody else, which is what Colin does every time. He starts describing everybody else. I might be wrong, but that's what it comes across as.
Well, it's the conversation.
You're telling everybody else how we should lay out GCC so we can all tell our little stories.
It's how I'm trying to understand what everybody else is doing to find out if I'm aligned properly with the conversation, or if I could ever align with that conversation. Or
exactly. Ask yourself that question. Why don't you align somewhere?
Even more importantly, is that the right, appropriate place to try to align that conversation?
I don't know. You're the one who's going to answer that one.
Well, no, I think the group can. And if as we go,
the group is fairly well aligned.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
I know you don't think so. That's why I'm saying it.
And find the triggers, and we can talk about those specific things. Otherwise,
the only one who has triggers is you.
No, I think it gets to a trigger point when it becomes personal. This isn't personal to me. This is just a group trying to focus, and people bringing in ideas from all different worldviews.
So you've never been triggered on the GCC at all?
No, I've been triggered by Alex, and I mentioned at the beginning I've been triggered by you too with the atheist Barbie thing.
I've never been personal about you, Colin.
Well,
ever.
You got snipey about the Barbie thing, but we can talk about that. And Alex,
Barbie was not aimed at you. Don't take it personally.
No, I took it on. I just wanted to know what you meant by it, and you had no answers. You're just.
I don't have to answer it. I made the statement, and if you can't interpret it, forget it.
Yeah. So whatever. Forget about you then. You're irrelevant. But
I made another statement yesterday. Did you read that one?
I don't know. But Alex,
exactly.
Alex and I actually had something where we actually tried to mediate it, and we agreed 3 or 4 times, and that just fell flat. And Doug was very.
Sam's had his hand up.
It did not get resolved. I watched that video again, and Doug, I think if you watch that video, you would have to say, yeah, I misinterpreted that. My belief in that was wrong. I misinterpreted that. My belief that would happen was wrong. And yeah, is it even important to revisit? Well, no, it's probably not important to rehash the actual issue, but the fact that it ever got resolved and you made a whole bunch of assumptions may be worth revisiting. Because unless we actually talk about concrete things, then we're talking generally. So your general talk about belief was great, but when it comes down to what Glenn believes and what the Teen Congress needs to know and who's asking who on whose time and for what reason, that's what I'm getting into. So I'm definitely nitpicking, not trying to shelve. I'm not trying to shelve any conversations. I'm just trying to, navigate. And it's very difficult when everybody thinks that they have what I need. Like Jazz, if I don't get this, like been very pointed judgments at my need for this knowledge, yet I haven't heard why yet.
We can have a conversation where
the Big Bang have to do what I'm doing.
Subjects that cross-reference each other start to become apparent.
Where does
that
the Big Bang cross-reference?
Hold on. This is very important to me, so that we together can start analyzing the so-called scholars and religious entities who are supposedly high-level thinkers, and that they have taken the same entities, given them different names, and built a whole scenario around each and how they cross-reference. Okay? That is the job of science, and science ain't doing it. I'm complete. Sam had his hand up.
So I just shared it in text, and that is, if there's anything that I would like GCC to be, is a place where we can exemplify how we disagree well. And I would like that to be kind of the question underneath everyone's contribution is this me disagreeing well? Am I really leaning in with a curious, generous, intent to learn and intent to understand? Because if we can't do that, then we can't achieve coexistence. And to be coexistence is one of the first things we need to strive for. You can strive for other things, like I mentioned, peace, love, all that sort of thing, fairness, whatever. But coexistence, to me, almost has to come before any of that is possible. And for that to happen, we've got to figure out when we disagree, and we are going to disagree often, can we do it well? That's the question I'd like to put on the table here for everybody. Over.
I think it takes a lot of courage to try to sit with people that you don't agree with. It's a lot easier for me to get up and storm out of the room and say, you know what? I'm not going to have anything to do with those people because I disagree with them, and fuck that. So I think that it takes a lot of courage. I think it takes a lot of intellect and a lot of curiosity to be willing to sit down at a table with a group of people you don't agree with. A lot of times I don't have that. A lot of times my personal beliefs get in the way and my passion, and it's exhausting. It takes a lot of energy to sit down with people you don't agree with because it's exhausting, because it challenges everything, and it jacks up your flight or flight. When we're trying to drive a narrative home, we start getting that adrenaline going, and boy, that change in that energy just starts exploding all over. I think it's more intense when people are in the same room together. But even on Zoom, you feel it. You're like, oh, wow, So I love what you have to say, Sam. I think that, hi, little kids. There's some cute littles popping in and out of that. Hi, little. So, good for us for having the courage to sit with these difficult conversations and be willing to be flexible, to be open-minded, to be comfortable enough to sit and listen to other people's perspective. So I love that, Sam. Thank you. I'm done.
Yeah, I don't think we can go anywhere else to disagree as well as we are disagreeing here. It's a discord. I do agree it's a discord. But it's the best discord in the universe, I think. I'm complete.
So those last two from Tyra and Jazz were the first of our sign-outs because we're coming up toward the top of the hour. So I want to invite closing comments, and since I have the mic, I'll do mine. So I had, talked about sort of being willing to tread into the land of alternative beliefs. So I found myself over at my nephew's, and they had Fox on the TV, Fox News. And it had been a while since I had stuck my nose into Foxland, and I do try to do that periodically just to have a frame of reference for what's driving that part of the country. And I was sitting there watching, and I literally, it sort of felt like the what was the Rod Serling show, Outer Limits, or
Twilight Zone?
Yeah, Twilight Zone. It really felt like I was, all of a sudden I was not watching a Twilight Zone episode, but I was living in a Twilight Zone episode. And it might also have had to do with the edible that I had before I went over there, but notwithstanding that, I literally was just to step into the gestalt of being an audience member of that. No judgment, no reactivity, anything, just sort of like living it, 100% immersively living in it. It couldn't have been more bizarre and alternative, and it was a completely different reality that was being presented and that was being shared and talked about. And what was breathtakingly clear was if that's what I consume, then, the whole alternative world of Trump rationalizes and makes sense. like if you believe what you're fed over that channel and that's the only information you have to work off of, then that's the belief construct that holds you safe and keeps you going and make America great again. All that, all the tropes, all the stuff. And it was breathtaking to experience that for a moment. And it does, it's a non-judgment, non-competitive, non-adversarial, true inquiry engagement at that point into how to have a conversation with somebody who's been nourished and fed on that stuff and lives in that bubble and believes what they believe. And, to own and recognize that I'm sitting there on a steady diet of MSNBC, and that's my bubble. And my view of reality conforms to that bubble, and the judgments that I'm supposed to have and reactivities I'm supposed to have to the forces that, threaten popping the MSNBC bubble. It's a complete, all of that stuff operating on that plane of awareness, recognition, experience, existence is constructed and manufactured by man, by people. And no one of them is any realer than the next one. At the end of the day, it's just, which one do I eat? Which one do I eat? Because whatever one I eat is the one I buy, I believe, I live off of, I come from, I uphold, I defend, and there's got to be a way of putting all of that aside. Leave all of that shit at the door, arrive clean, open, present, and open to the possibilities, and start from scratch. Don't bring any of the shit you're attached to, any of the shit you spent 10 years fantasizing, building, or developing, or providing to the world as its salvation. Leave it all behind. And how about starting clean slate? Because there's a better chance of evolving something clean slate by and between 9 people that actually does change the world than pissing up wind and fighting with each other as to whose idea is better or whose idea is richer or whose idea is more comprehensive or more authoritative or more this or more that or whatever, which is what's been going on. And I don't think it's a matter of coexisting each with everybody's own attachments. And as deep dives proved, I don't think it's a matter of letting each person have their day as long as it takes as deep as they have to go in order to feel like they've expressed everything they have to express and put it on the table. Because even then, they're still not satisfied at not bringing it back into the next conversation when they're supposedly done. Like nobody that did the deep dives took advantage of the opportunity it represented, which is to say, now that I've had my say and done that and gotten it out, and all these people listen to all of it and know what I'm talking about, I can let go of all of that and come to this clean. No, people don't let go. So with that, I'm complete and done, but I really appreciate this session. And we are Colin, not mapping to an output or a product or a thing here, but that doesn't make it just talk. We are working toward an event horizon that we haven't been able to see yet, which is doing this differently.
I disagree. I think we are mapping it, but we're mapping it in different ways.
I'll do a checkout. And it's something my father said to me, probably one of the best things he ever said to me. And it was this: as you think, so shall you be. And it stayed with me for a long time. And it means, and what does it mean? It means that my state of happiness in the world, my ability to communicate with others and get my message across is dependent on how I think, largely. It's a matter of being able to distinguish between what's useful and what's rubbish. It's the rubbish in, rubbish out scenario. Anyway, that's my checkout. Thanks, Doug.
So my takeaway for today is this is a practice. What we're doing right now is a practice, like meditation, art, music. We're practicing listening to people. We're practicing engaging, and we're practicing expressing our own ideas and what's important. One of the most beneficial things that have happened to me since Trump was elected was it gave me the opportunity to articulate what's important to me. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. And so as I sit here, I'm practicing listening to everyone's different narratives, belief systems, passions, intellectual understanding. And that's pretty great. Had I not done this morning, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to open my mind and practice for 1 hour. So thank you, everybody, for giving me that opportunity to sit with you and practice being a fellow human being, which is very challenging because we're very egocentric. We're very narcissistic. And that part of our brain is a very driving force for survival. We had to develop that way in order to survive. So let's just keep practicing. And there's no right or wrong way to do it other than to be considerate. And sometimes, even if we're total assholes, it still gives us the opportunity to come around and say, God, I was such a jerk. Like, I'm really sorry that I lashed out like that. So all of that is a brilliant practice. So thank you, I'm done.
Oh, sorry, Sam, I was going to, never mind, I'll go after you.
Sure. Okay. All right. So, Doug, what you say is beautiful. It's beautiful in the sense that it's a ideal that we all want to strive for. This coming clean, leaving everything at the door. None of us do it. So long as we have memory, so long as we do not have 100% amnesia, none of us do it. None of us. So understanding where we are, understanding where we want to go, both are imperfect, right? So we have an imperfect understanding of where we are. We have a cloudish idea of this utopia that we want to go. Both can be simply characterized, depending on how much time we want to spend, how much money we want to spend, consuming information, reading theses, etc., etc. The art of living is how you get from here to there, right? That's the richness. That's the unpredictableness. That's the art of navigation. That's the interacting with other people, with the universe, with life, etc., and understanding our role and creating our own choices and opportunities to do that. To me, characterizing the present and characterizing the future are less important than learning how to navigate. So if we are constantly moving the cheese, okay, this world is a good place, but next week, I'm going to call it that, and the following week I call it that, and just Winter added this notion to it, Colin added that notion to it, Doug added that notion to it. That notion of where we want to go is always kind of evolving, just as our understanding of the present is. And by the way, we're leaving it behind day by day. Okay, so every day some new thing happens, and that changes what we think was the narrative, what we think was our explanation of what was going on. But through all of that, how we conduct ourselves along that path is the key. So that's how I tell myself the journey is. But whatever you want to add that final word to it. Okay. And so that's why I think, it's the decisions we make, the understanding we make, the stories we make, the attitude we bring, the happiness we spread, the positivity that we spread, that to me is what I'd like to lean into and understand more. And it includes a generosity to let others do that and to let others discover that way. And nobody's going to be at the same quote unquote stage or same quote unquote understanding of that. And whose job is it for me to say you're doing it wrong, or whose job is it to tell me that I'm doing it wrong? So long as we each have the notion that we're learning, trying to do better, trying to do good in the world. That's why for me the COI is not about where we want to go. It's how we conduct ourselves and how we hold each other, in support of each other. So too many things to lean on again, but that's the one thing I wanted to close with today. Thank you.
Well, some powerful statements there. I don't think I'm going to add or detract from any of those because they happen to be true. Yeah, except it's not an exception, it's an adage. The way of our going is evolving too. And if one steps back and takes a look at that, one can sort of start getting an inkling of the direction of that evolution and how that process has already repeated itself before. So processes keep repeating. That's what comes to my mind. And this process here, again, is a repeat. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a judgment either. And we're adding to the process all the time. Just an adage. So I'm going to say thank you very much. I really enjoyed that. I've got to go and cook the pizzas for everybody tonight, because apparently I'm the best pizza maker in the house. Bye.
Of course you are. Why wouldn't you say?
Kayla, any parting words?
Yes, this is exhausting. And I don't mean that in a bad way, to be honest. Just when you were talking about Trump believers, I have a few friends, very close friends of mine, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting to compartmentalize your beliefs, hold your values to yourself, and truly listen to what they have to say and put yourself in their mindset and try to justify, okay, their belief system is correct in their world. I mean, unity, is it asking too much? Honestly, in my opinion, not really. But to others, yeah, maybe so. I like this debate of belief systems because it really kind of goes into our core values, as the human race. I mean, we have these forward frontal thinking lobes for a reason, you know, um, and we can truly make this world a better place. So again, to just take in everyone's beliefs, and try to make it to where it's feasible to your community, to your world, to your lifestyle is exhausting. But like Tira said, it's practice, it's habits, you know, much like the talanoa that I do with my friends. I mean, sometimes it was exhausting until it became a habit. And then it was fun, you know. So, thank you. I just, as usual, enjoy listening. Thank you.
Colin, you want to take us out?
Yeah. So I am wishing I had the right words so that I am understood, and I hope I have been clear. Sam thinks unity is unachievable. Asking too much, I guess. And being happy and hopeful is a good thing, but I don't think I'm coming to this space to be happy. I'm not coming to this space to be hopeful or find faith. Other people may be. And if they are, and it's their time to express themselves, then I think it is valuable to let them express themselves. Whether they come away wanting more, I think is an indication. I get that impression from Jazz that maybe he should sprout something. That's what my conclusion was. If I'm not building on this narrative, which is very passionate and important to me, then what am I doing? If I can't go back and find out what contributions I've made to this group, and it's just a ragtag of everything and anything, then am I really contributing much at all towards what my intention is? Somebody may just want to be here for emotional support and comment on everything, and that could be fine as well. So I'm not here to judge what people are bringing. I do have a little bit of judgment when it comes to going around in circles, and also levels of confidence where it can be applied, not that it can be applied to everything. For example, if there came to the conversation, I think we could put with a level of confidence that most everything this person's going to say is probably not going to be agreed with the consensus of the scientific community. If you've watched any of the flat earth debates, it's hilarious. I find the debates with God similar when it becomes fundamental. But I'm not wanting to put on the map belief in God is not accepted here. I am willing to put on the map belief in a flat earth is not accepted here. So where are other people willing to say, as soon as the conversation's all about Trump and how the Lord entitled us to all that we want to take from the earth because he's coming and there's going to be an Armageddon, and so don't worry about it. If somebody has that worldview and they're stuck on that and they don't really care about the here and the now, then it's very hard to find common ground with that person to work on things when they're just going to veto me with God's coming. So that's one thing I'm willing to put on the map. Difficulty listening to people over and over again with the claim that they're certain about that they cannot bring evidence or reason why I should believe it, but are bullying me that I do need to believe it. That doesn't happen a lot here. So, so it does come down to bullying, and there's different conduits to bullying. And I think people being too certain in what they believe, they can start to bully people as been brought up, and it gets passionate. Maybe I'm dropping Bibles on the ground and not feeling bad about it because I don't have any emotional superstition to discussing these topics, where other people are very put off with even bringing it up, having any doubt at all against their deity. So I do appreciate that some people can't even go into the mind space of science, of doubting what they know. So at some point, you have to put on the map that this is conversations going nowhere. 8 out of 10 people agree that if we spend time on this conversation again in this particular form, that we're wasting time. But we could take that conversation somewhere else because that person needs to, and the people who want to support that conversation could. I think Gertrude did something like that. She took her show to another audience outside of the space of unblocking and barn raising. So I'm all up for people experimenting all they want. I just have a preconception that we're here to move forward in some way and to give updates on how we're moving forward. So I've been trying to do that. And yeah, I guess when the flat earthers come to the show, I think we need to have a couple of agreements that, you know, we let the person speak their truth and then say what relevance that has to the conversation. Did that help focus us? And do we want to talk about that in the main show? Or if you want to talk about that more, maybe we can facilitate you talking about it somewhere else. Yes, I am sort of steering what should and shouldn't be talked about, but not on first sight, but on experience that this person's beating the same drum over and over again. I think I'm getting somewhere. I would like people to challenge me on that. Where are you getting to? Not, you know, I see you have a trigger with somebody trying to have overconfidence in, you know, something that Jazz may have said that I questioned him on. You know, is there a way that I can bring up, I don't believe that, or should I, you know, these are things we can work on, but I find them smaller points. And I think Doug thinks that they're bigger points. So if he wants to explore why I have a difficulty with people being so certain, then we can, you know, and trying to have authority over. If we want to discuss that people want to believe things that I don't believe, as long as they don't have authority over me, it's their tribe, it's their business. But as soon as it goes into the global infrastructure of entitlement over people because of a faith, I think that conversation is still going on, surprisingly, in the modern day. And when I see people flippantly add faith to the conversation, I tend to challenge them more than maybe I should. And I'll try to make sure that I keep it to where it's relevant to me. And I don't want to be a gatekeeper for the show, but I would like people to be relevant to the fact that we could have a bit of a memory that we aren't going to discuss flat earthing anymore during the show. And if it's so important to this person, they keep coming to the show trying to condone the virtues of flat earth. How do we deal with that? How do we deal with the person who you know, who wants to make accusations and not follow through with them? Which there's 2 people that come to this show today that I feel that I still haven't resolved that, nor do I think I ever will, because they have their own agenda and their own view of what that conversation is, which is not the same as my view. So I think just having a conversation about what are we trying to talk about is almost the important conversation, because whatever their grievance was is untrue. I wasn't trying to manipulate, make people buy anything, cause them any grief. I'm not trying to tell somebody that their religion is unuseful. I'm saying it might be unuseful in the context as it applies to me during this conversation. And that's only after it happens over and over again. So that's what I'm saying. Do we have a way we can steer conversations and agree better? And as Sam pointed out, I like what I said, and I'll end with that. Disagreeing well means understanding, and steel manning the other person's position to understand. So, and that could lead to an impasse, but a well understood impasse. And I think, you know, people who are entitled and think that it's theirs, and people who think that they're not entitled and it shouldn't be theirs, those 2 people can go to war over land. And they understand why they're going to war. And you can't tell them just to lay down your arms and we're just going to share all this land, right? So that's the realm that we're in. And if we want to talk about personal things and have personal days, that's fine. But I find we're in a larger global conversation, and it should have a secular nature to it. I said should, unless there's a reason to bring in that culture, because then it becomes local. It's no longer global. And so I'm not here to defend defend atheism as a virtue or humanism as a virtue. I'm here to I shouldn't say I'm here to, but I will call out skeptically people with overconfident claims. And that's what this is all about. Overconfident claims. And call me out too. Because if I say something, you know, fair is fair. And that's how we move forward. Not by saying, oh, you offended me. And, you know, because I believe in the end, the conversation about religion just comes down to, I believe it, so there. And that's the end of the conversation. As soon as they try to back it up, find reasons for it, become apologetic, it starts to go into this windy, twisty world of opinion. And whatever Doug said, everybody has their own way of justifying things. So that's basically it. It's not to go down that trail in the first place unless necessary. And if somebody has a great passion about religion, which I don't think Jazz actually does, you know, it would be interesting to actually have the conversation about what we're trying to talk about, as opposed to him telling me that I don't understand what he's trying to tell me, so therefore I have to sit down and understand that. I want to know why I have to understand that before I sign up for his course, because I do feel he's trying to give me a course. Anyway, that's kind of what it is. Maybe I'm wrong, but I did hear him say today something to that effect, that he had a passion that people needed to understand this. So go for it. Just, are you going to do it during barn raising every third Saturday? Or are you going to create your own sprout and actually grow that piece of work? Yeah, so that's it. What's your intention, and are you coming here seriously or just to gab? I guess there's a little of both. So let's just be clear when which is happening. That's what I guess I say. That's why it's frustrating to me.
And with that, enjoy your Sunday. What's left of it. Thank you.